Hey, what's up, everybody? This is an open discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Harley Quinn.
That's right, I have Cheryl Quinn with me. And today we are talking about the one and only Suicide Squad. That is a sequel, but not really, but kind of, but it's its own thing. Anyway, we are going to be going into spoiler territory, and trust us, if you have not seen this movie, you do not want the thing spoiled for you because some things you can probably guess, a lot of things you probably won't because this movie kind of builds itself on subverting expectations in a positive way. So, we are going to go into that. So if you want to check it out and not have it ruined for you, watch the movie. It's on HBO Max until I think for like a month or so. Then come back and check us out. But let's go ahead and get right into it. So a little bit of meta commentary about this movie, Cheryl. This right here that I have is a list of all the characters in the movie. And what my friends and I did was that we wrote out every single character in the movie and then we put our names beside who we thought was going to die. And we literally did that for every single character. We also said which character we thought would die late in the movie, which character would die early in the movie, and then a special bonus round was, can you guess which character is going to get their head blown up with the bomb? So we called it the bomb. Can you guess which character is going to be the bomb? And just so you know, I not only won the bet by like maybe like 1 or 2 points, but I also completely predicted the after credit sequence without even seeing it. Because I actually told my friends beforehand, I said, well, one of these characters is probably going to die at the beginning, but I said it was going to be Weasel. I said, Weasel's probably going to die at the beginning, but then we're going to find out at the end, after an after credit sequence, that he's not still alive and then he's going to run off because they're not going to have Weasel and King Shark in this entire movie. And one of the other people was just like, how did you predict that? And I was like, because I kind of get how movies work, just in general. But it was funny when the movie began and the people in the movie were taking bets on who was going to die. We literally were laughing so hard. It was great. But that was my experience going into the movie. What was it like for you?
So I went into it with, and I this is usually how I go into movies. I don't want to know anything about it, so I don't watch any trailers. I don't
Yeah.
I don't need just like I don't think anything. I don't know who's gonna be in it. I don't know anything. And so the first person that you see is Michael Rooker. I love Michael Rooker. So I was like, oh cool, he's in this movie. And then we see Nathan Fillion as the
TDK.
detachable
Attachment Kid.
detachable kid. And then well, okay, then Boomer and Harley are in at the beginning on the team. And again, because I didn't know anything about it, I didn't watch any trailers. I was like, "This is the Suicide Squad." I was like, "I've never heard of any of these people." And I guess like besides Harley and Boomer, there's Michael Rooker and then Nathan Fillion. So I was like, those are gonna be the four hotshot guys. And then I was like, why is this weirdo Weasel on this team? I was like, is he gonna be like really incredible later? And then he like jumps out of the helicopter and he's like drowning. And I was like, oh my god, it was one of the most hilarious moments in the movie because of how like they just spent so much time letting him drown, and then Amanda Waller is like glaring at her team like, none of you researched this. And you just like
Right?
hear him wailing in the water, and then they all die pretty much except for Harley, of course. um and I was like, no way, there's no way they're gonna kill off Nathan Fillion and Michael Rooker, but then they do, and I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen in this show now.
Wow. Yeah, you had a very different experience because so they released a roll call trailer like way back in the day, and the only thing that was in this trailer was the characters and the people that were playing them. So because we just kind of like so this movie is the most Suicide Squad movie is one of the most Suicide Squad things I've seen like outside of the comic. It's even like almost more Suicide Squad than like the comics that I've read. So I've read Suicide Squad comic books, and that's what they do. They do this thing where they have these characters that you meet that are part of the team, and if they're not Harley or Deadshot, um, usually they're not safe, and that's and they always have a character that doesn't believe that there's a bomb in them or is going to do whatever they want anyway, and then Amanda Waller has to make an example out of them. So there's always one person that has to get killed by a bomb, and then there's always a couple of people that have to be killed just because they're the Suicide Squad. So knowing that going in, seeing famous actors playing roles of characters that we didn't even know about as like comic book fans, that was a red flag for us. We were just like, oh, you guys are definitely dying. You're only in here for cameos. So, and the way the movie starts with like the thing that got me, the surprise death for me was Captain Boomerang. I was not expecting Captain Boomerang to die because he's a Flash villain. And I thought they were making a new Flash movie, so I figured he would be in the Flash movie. Clearly not. So the other thing to remember about this movie is that it is made by James Gunn, who most people probably know from Guardians of the Galaxy, but probably don't know his other works like Slither and Super. And James Gunn is a very non-typical director, and the stories that he tells are going to be, I guess the phrase would be, atypical. So he is not going to do what you he's not going to do what you expect. And so this franchise, this specific movie, is kind of like the perfect playground for him to be weird and to just kind of have a good time.
Yeah, and it really was exactly that. It was just the right amount of weird, and like the characters kind of babble like they and I think that's why it's so funny, because it feels real, because they're all just
Yeah.
babbling, and they all have like weird out of character kind of moments, but then it makes sense for the scene and doesn't really disrupt their characters. Like when they all accidentally killed everyone in the camp, and they're like, oh, yeah, no, we didn't see anyone.
It's one of the best parts of that movie. It's one also the first times when they subvert your expectations, right? Because you're thinking they're going in, they're taking out gorillas that are like evil, that like killed people, and then it's just like, yeah, y'all just killed off a bunch of members of the resistance that's fighting against the people that were like, that are oppressing this country.
And it's not just
Oh,
that. It's also because like they were having fun with it. Like they weren't just sniping people out. They were competing against each other, and then like there was this one moment where what's his name, Bloodshot or Bloodspot,
Bloodsport,
Blood Bloodsport,
Bloodsport.
Bloodsport, and Pacemaker are like flicking each other off. And I'm not gonna do it now, but they make these like weird gestures, and then it's just kind of like, what? Like, what is even happening? This is like the most like immature like mime fight ever, and it was just it's just kind of almost like a throwback to high school.
Yeah, I mean, it also just shows you how it wasn't a challenge for them. They're in this moment, and it's like this is easy for us because we are that good at our jobs. But like that scene is another just it's one moment in many where it takes something that you expect and then it recontextualizes it to make it messed up. Because before that, it is fun. You're looking at it, you're like, oh, this is cool. They're killing all these people. Right, we're gonna go save Rick Flag. And then you realize Rick Flag's not in danger, one, so that's flipped on his head. And then two, the people that are actually good and they saved him, and now everything that you were just cheering about you now feel awful about. You're just and it's like, oh my gosh. And that's fun, and that's good inversion and subverting expectations because you weren't expecting it and it feels awful, but it feels good that it feels awful, if that makes sense.
It kind of killed the mood for me though, because I was having a really good time until that point, and then I was like, oh no, this sucks. And then I felt a little bit like pulled out of the movie actually because the woman's reaction was like not devastating enough.
Severe enough. Yeah.
She just kind of like was like, okay, well, I need your help. So then I was like, okay, because if I was her, like that would maybe that would have been like a cool spot for like her and one of them to like get into a fight, and then like Rick Flag being like, wait, stop, 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 and then like talk them down out of it. I think maybe that would have been a little bit more. Um, maybe it would have made the movie too long, but it just felt weird that she just accepted it. And then like they just move on. That
No,
yeah, that just took
absolutely.
me out.
No, you're right. I remember thinking that too, where I was wondering why she wouldn't, because these are her friends, and now they're all dead, and they don't address that at all. But like you said, maybe it's because they didn't want to make the movie long, and they just wanted to like move on, and it was just their way of kind of having some dumb fun. But yeah, that's probably one of the most unrealistic parts out of the movie. Um, and then yeah, but they move on, and then another moment that they kind of use to kind of flip on its head is the rescue Harley moment, because they're gonna go and get her out because they're worried about her, and then she gets herself out. So this big rescue plan that they have, like, and you're thinking, if you haven't seen the trailers, if you've seen the trailers, you know, but if you haven't seen the trailers, you're thinking to yourself, oh, they're really going to go and rescue Harley. This is going to be awesome. But she doesn't even need them. And then when she gets out, she sees them by accident. and then that whole thing is just done, and now it's a scene that doesn't even happen. And that's fine though, because we still got to see a cool action sequence with her being rescued, just not the one we were expecting to get.
And I gotta say, I really want to point out how much I appreciated what they did for Harley because they really gave her a moment to shine in that whole escape. Um, and they also like well yeah because she's like pretty flexible, she's acrobatic, so she's able to like to from a hanging position she's able to like take out the guy, and then she grabs a pair of boots, which I absolutely love
Mm-hmm.
because if she's gonna kick ass and like beat everyone up and escape, she's gonna do it in a pair of combat boots. If she's gonna wear a dress, she can wear a dress, but she's gonna wear boots, and I love that, and I love how she can pretty much hold her own. Like she doesn't need to be rescued. Don't rescue the lady. She can rescue herself.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it's cool. And then she's very capable, and they're all very capable. There's this really cool moment when they're all like arrested in the van, the three guys, Bloodsport, Rick Flag, and Peacemaker, and then they just totally synchronize when they're gonna attack the people that are in the prison van with them, and they take them out, crash the prison van, and then walk out looking all awesome and everything. Um, so like that was that was a very another very cool moment. Like these characters get a lot of love, and I think and the movie also has a lot of endearing moments too, in the form of King Shark and I forget the mouse's name.
Sebastian.
Sebastian. Oh my gosh, Sebastian. So I thought we were only gonna have like two animal companions in this movie, with the second one being Weasel, but we actually got three animal companions, and Sebastian and King Shark are absolutely amazing. I love those characters.
I freaking love King Shark. His character is just so funny and like lovable, and I love how like he's technically the tank. He's the strongest character. I thought he
Mm-hmm.
died, but then he kept getting back up again. I'm like, yeah, King Shark. I love this guy, and he's just so like he's like a big teddy bear because they make him kind of like a Dumbo, where he's not like very bright, but you know, he still like contributes to the team. And I was dying when he was like, I'll wear a disguise, and then he was like, fake mustache, and then he just walks around like this, and they're like, nope, you still look like a shark.
And he gets so upset. He gets so he rushes all away and just starts cursing out loud.
Yeah.
Um,
That
but yeah,
was like my favorite scene. And then they gave him this shining moment where he like rips someone in half, and like that was such a cool moment, like a cool shot. The only thing that was like kind of lacking for me for him was that I kind of wish they would have done some kind of seafaring moment between him and Starro, because he's King Shark and it's a starfish. So I thought like he would do something really cool, but no, he just chews on him a little bit. And I was like, well, that kind of died there for me. I was like, come on, do a little bit more for King Shark. He's King Shark.
yo, King Shark had his moment though when he fell out of the tower, landed on the ground, and literally bit a dude's head off, and then scared the entire army away. Like King Shark had a couple of moments, um, but I think that character was done very very well, and I really enjoyed seeing that character. There is another moment of oh yeah, then the other moment of subversion, which is more Suicide Squad story, more so than James Gunn being James Gunn, is the whole reason why they're there. Like you think they're there to maybe destroy Project Starfish, but no, they're there to destroy any evidence of their involvement in Project Starfish. And that was Amanda Waller's goal the entire time. And that was what was worth her killing or getting all these people killed. Like Amanda Waller is not a hero. She is one of the worst villains in this show actually in this movie actually. And the idea that she is willing to risk the lives of these people who are criminals themselves, but she doesn't care as long as she gets to eliminate any involvement of the actual US government being a part of this conspiracy. She's fine. Even if the thing gets loose and starts killing people, she's still fine. She sleeps easy. So that moment was another fun little moment, but felt very Suicide Squad esque. Of yeah, the reason we thought we were here is not the actual reason we're here, and the actual reason we're here is actually worse than what it could have been.
Yeah, and I love the casting for Amanda Waller. Viola Davis is just completely perfect, just the same as Harley Quinn, also perfect casting. Um, and I mean, I wrote down that Amanda Waller's like totally worse than the criminals, but I guess
Yeah,
like in a way she's as corrupt government can get, where like
yeah,
they think they're doing things for the best of for the government, but by
yeah,
doing that they're actually doing something like terrible, and that feels like a really, I mean, obviously it's a huge commentary on government in the first place, but the whole character design, not just in the movies but in the universe, in the DC universe, Amanda Waller is like one of my favorite characters in DC.
oh yeah. I mean, not even Batman steps to Amanda Waller. I remember there's one animated in the show. There's one moment in the animated show. I think it was in Justice League actually, where Batman tries to get in Amanda Waller's face, and she basically says to him, to Batman, she looks at him point blank and says something along the lines of, "You don't want to mess with me, rich boy," and then you see Batman like, "Wait, what?" Because Batman didn't even know that Amanda Waller knew who he was. So it's just she's always been such a strong like character that has always been more slightly morally bankrupt, but Viola Davis is definitely good casting on her part, and I really liked what they did with her character. And as a person that loves the comics of Suicide Squad, I liked how weird this movie got, especially because of the fact that Starro is a villain that people do not know, at least not the casual like side of comic book fans. And the fact that we got a Suicide Squad movie where the main villain was Starro, I remember thinking to myself, how is this happening? How did I get Starro in a live action movie and with the Suicide Squad, no less? So that's it, and it just fits with the weirdness of the entire thing. But for some reason, it works.
Yeah, I actually had never heard of Starro before, and I kind of liked it. I feel like it went with the theme of the movie, and that being like very colorful. Like the movie was quite colorful, and I guess that is like a Suicide Squad thing. Um, but like even like Harley is so colorful, and I don't know if you noticed because in the first Suicide Squad, she's all red and blue.
Yeah.
But in this movie, she's red and black, which I thought was cool because that's how I remember growing up seeing Harley in the
Mhm.
cartoons, where her theme is red and black. And I didn't pick up on it right away, but I was like, oh, actually, that's really cool how her theme is like now red and black. It's just a little bit change, but it's more true to the cartoons that I remember.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And everything about this is just it works tonally. Even when you read the Suicide Squad comics, the thing to remember is that these guys are all villains, and so they're not heroes. They're not here to save people, and people get hurt because of their actions. So it's but at the same time they are kind of anti-heroes in certain situations. So that moment where they turn around and actually do go decide to save this town is a really good moment. But it's all this also this moment of how are these people going to beat this thing? Because they literally can't. They none of these characters are Superman, and it's a giant starfish that can take over people's minds, going around the town destroying it. How do they win? So, at least for the final act of the movie, it really creates this high stakes situation of not knowing um, how the movie is going to turn out. And besides Bloodsport and Harley Quinn, you think to yourself anybody can die. So you're actually kind of worried if you have started to like some of these characters.
Yeah, I thought King Shark was gonna die, and I was really sad. Needless to say, he was my favorite in this movie.
Hans.
Book read.
It's upside down. More dumb friends.
But yeah, like another thing that I really liked about this movie, besides people dying,
Of course,
is
everyone does.
is the non-linearness. So that's like something that I hate. I hate time travel movies, or like when things don't happen chronologically. But
Hmm.
they do so well. Like they do just enough in this movie where like it feels like we're watching a natural flow, and then it's just like 8 minutes earlier, and then they show you something else, and then I forget that this is back in time because we're looking at other people, and then we get to the point where they converge, and then I'm like, oh, okay. And they did. I
Yeah,
think they only did that twice, but or no, they did they do it 3 times. I don't
it was,
remember.
I can remember at least twice because they did it when the movie opened, and then we flash back to 2 weeks earlier, and then they did it when the bombs go off near the end of the movie because we at first we're at the in the basement, and then we flash back to 8 minutes earlier, and now we're at the top where they plant the bombs, and we got to see why the bombs went off early.
Yeah. So that worked really well for me, and I also liked how they did the titles.
I was about to ask you about the titles.
Yeah,
That was
I
literally my next
loved
thing.
it. At first, I was confused because when they were on the beach, it said like "now" in the sand, and I was like, "Now? Why did someone write 'now' in the sand?" And I was like, "Oh, this is back now. Okay, I get it now."
Or like how they did Warner Brothers Pictures Presents written in the blood of Savant's head that just exploded.
Yeah, and then there's like the rooftop stuff where like it's like this, and then we like fly over it, and then it becomes other things.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
cool.
like the Jotunheim or one of my other favorite parts of the movie where I was just getting like this movie can just get exciting too. So like after that scene I was talking about where those guys like saved themselves out of that police vehicle and it says Operation Jotunheim, but then they say but first, and then it changes to Operation Harley, written in fire and flames like burning behind them, which obviously that's not actually there, but you kind of don't care because it's an aesthetic, and the aesthetic works for the style of the movie, and so you just go with it,
And
even
they do
though
it
it
consistently.
absolutely can pull you out. Like there's one point they're in the elevator, and the one of the buttons on the elevator says like deep dark secrets or something, and you're like, okay, the elevator doesn't actually say that, but it works for the tone of the movie, so it's fun.
Yeah, and like I was saying earlier, it really works because they keep doing it and they do it throughout the show, so it becomes a thing. It's like they defined it right away. So
Mm-hmm.
anytime they do it again, it's just like it just makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I mean, at the end of the day, for me, I had a lot of fun with this movie. Another thing that I like to do for Suicide Squad is they have two names. They're called the Suicide Squad, which is their kind of unofficial name, and Task Force X, which is their official name. So the game was anytime Amanda Waller or somebody called them Task Force X, you take a drink. And near the end of the movie, where they kept being called Task Force X, we all were drinking a lot at that point. Um, but the thing out of all the deaths, because I mentioned how earlier how Captain Boomerang kind of surprised me, but at the same time it was like, all right, fine. Rick Flag was the one I found the most surprising. I did not expect them to kill off Rick Flag, and that was the probably the only death that bothered me because I felt like he's the leader, but I get that you don't necessarily need him for future movies. But it almost feels kind of sad to me that he won't be in future movies.
I don't necessarily miss him. He's okay. I mean, I feel like he was needed in the first movie. In this one,
Right.
I was actually surprised that Amanda Waller put him on
The Suicide
the
Team.
Suicide Team. Yeah, so I think that like from that, I was surprised that he died, but then I kind of came to terms with it because of that, where I'm like, yeah, actually they don't really need him. Um,
They don't.
he's just like a good guy, but then the Suicide Squad always has a good guy anyway, and they all end up being good guys at the end. So there's no
Right.
need for a good-hearted person because they'll just turn good all by themselves. Plus, like,
True.
um, Bloodsport was never really a bad guy in this movie.
He shot Superman.
No, in this movie,
Fair
he was always kind of good-hearted in this movie.
enough. Yeah, he wasn't just a jerk. That's true.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so you're 100% right on that. They don't need him. So moving forward, we'll see how they treat these how they cast more characters if they do more movies like this. But I also appreciate the call out. One we talk about plants and payoffs in movies, and one of the ones that I really appreciated was how Bloodsport and Peacemaker were arguing about how Peacemaker was better than Bloodsport because he could shoot through his bullet holes without hitting the edges. And then when it finally comes down to the end of the movie, the thing that makes Bloodsport win is
Yeah.
having a smaller bullet that's able to go through Peacemaker's bullet. And so that was just a really nice call out, and it made it feel good in the moment. That's a very good thing to do in filmmaking in general, but it just really worked, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, and that moment at the beginning of the movie where he was like, "I could shoot in the center." Well, I could shoot even more in the center. How can you shoot more in the center if it's in the center?
Shoot between your holes without hitting the edges.
Yeah, that was good. And again, this is what I meant by like they just kind of babble, like they just say things, and it's like weird, like like
Yeah, yeah. When he talks about eating a bunch of penises in the on the
yeah.
beach for liberty, it's like who would do why would there be penises on the beach? Who knows why men do what they do? They just yeah, you're right. They just babble. Um, Oh, I remember the final moment I want to bring up as an act of subversion when we meet who we think is going to be the main villain of the movie, and he's with Harley, and they have this whole montage together, and then he's giving his kind of bad guy villain speech, and he turns around and Harley just shoots him, and he dies. And you're just like, wait, Harley just killed the main villain. Wait, what's gonna happen now? And then she even looks at the gun and says, I'm surprised this had a bullet in it. It's like it's moments like that. It's just the movie is it's ridiculous, it's crazy, it's fun, and it's self-aware. And it as somebody who also read the Suicide Squad comics, it feels so much like what those comics are, that if I read this story as a comic book, it would fit right in with all the stories I'd read before it. So to see it in live action felt like a true adaptation of what this series can be.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other things that I can say, like just like little nitpicky things and stuff like that. But I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was really funny, and I had a good time. I actually watched it twice.
Oh wow!
Because well, I watched it on Friday, so I just wanted a refresher today. But then I picked, because like I said, they babble a lot. So there's a lot of these little things that I didn't pick up on the first time. Like when I forget which guy, he was like putting on a seatbelt, and then
Blackguard.
yeah, and then TDK, is it? Yeah, the wait, what's his name?
Nathan Fillion's character.
TDK.
Yeah.
He's like helping him with the seatbelt, and then he's like, "There, now you're safe." And they all end up dying.
Yes, it's great. I don't know what they do with the sequel though. I don't know what they do with the third movie, but the first movie was PG-13. This one was R, and the R rating definitely worked in this movie's favor. So, yeah, I remember thinking that the reason the first movie was PG-13 was because it was taking place in a universe where they were trying to create with Superman and Batman and all these other movies, and those were PG-13. So your universe movies, you want everyone to be able to see, kind of like what Marvel does. But now it seems like they've given up on that, and they were more willing to just lean into how R the Suicide Squad should be, and it worked out for them.
Yeah, and definitely something that I think they did better this time around than the first time around is the team building. Like the characters all interact with each other and they all bond together. They have moments together. They do everything together. As opposed to in the first one, they all kind of had their own relationships with themselves and Amanda Waller, but they never like acted like a team.
Yeah.
They never like had a moment, and I think in this movie, the characters are all equally introduced, and they're all equally. They share the same amount of screen time and the same amount of quality of like character performance. Like they all get moments to shine. They all do something. They all contribute. That's something that they really lacked in the first movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And outside of Harley Quinn, most of them are unknowns. So it becomes easier to like I mean, Idris Elba, of course, but like as far as the characters go, you don't really know them. So it becomes easier to try to like latch on to them and try to get to know them because you already have a predisposition towards the character because they are unknown DC characters for the most part.
Yep.
So anyway, any closing thoughts before we wrap up here?
We didn't talk at all about Polka Dot, but that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's your mom!
Real quickly, we like Polka Dot Man. He was one of my bets for dying at the end of the movie. And I was right about him, too.
He's okay. He was a weird character. I never heard of him before, and I was like, he really does shoot polka dots at people.
Yep, and they burn through you. It's dangerous. They're deadly. Yeah, I like the actor who played him too. So it's fun. But we're going to go ahead. We'll call it there. We'll talk more about it on our stream, which if you guys want to catch our streams live, it's on twitch.tv/C3Films. But what did you guys think of the Suicide Squad? Did you watch it? Did you have your own bets on who was going to live and die? Were you right about who died and when they died? Were you right about who had the bomb? Whatever you thought, comment below. Let us know. And when you're down there, if you give us a like, share, and subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we'll see you all next time.